So we'll get the meeting in order. Tonight, we have 5 line item budgets we were going to discuss, education being the starting point in that list. However, as everyone can see, Larry isn't here tonight because he's not feeling well. So he asked if we could move it to next week and get in the superintendent and the finance director of the school. She has a different title, but they will be coming next week as well. So then we will take up landfill recycling, board of health, community health, inspections and testing, and move into the annual town meeting warrant articles as listed, special town meeting warrant articles, meeting minutes of April 4th, and move on from there. So, Mike, I guess you're ready to take on landfill, board of health, and...
Sure. So, landfill budget, I work off of the D sheet, so I'm on page D32. There's about a $30,000 increase in this budget. Significant, there are 2 significant changes in here, or relatively significant. There's no change in staffing in here. The disposal trucking line item is increased by $22,000, and that just reflects the increased costs of hauling both leachate to the treatment plant, as well as taking materials off-site from the recycling center and transfer station that need to go to off-site disposal in there. So that just reflects increased costs in the trucking industry there. There's also a new line item in there. It says PFAP, it's really PFAS with an S.
Yes, okay.
Testing, the wastewater treatment plant has to do some testing for, and large industrial customers are targeted ones right now. The Board of Selectmen has, well, I think the town is going to do the testing, the collection of those samples, and the cost of those are to be paid by the users. Since the landfill is a user, they need to incorporate the cost for that into their budget this year. Other than that, there really aren't any significant changes in this budget. I will point out also, last year there was some discussion and concerns about the cover material line item. The fact that we don't have street sweepings anymore to use as material, and they were trying to source other materials. During the course of this year, the board was able to use an alternate material, recycled glass. All the stuff that gets ground up, and both ours as well as that from another disposal facility that has glass that it can't use in the marketplace. So they've been able to use that material as an alternate material. It comes free of charge. So instead of grinding up glass and shipping off site, it just goes to the landfill cover. You get it free and delivered to site from another location. So that's an action that they were able to take to reduce some costs, and hopefully if that continues with the success they're having, we should be able to see some reductions in that line item next year. Other than that, it's a relatively flat budget, and so I would make a motion that we recommend at town meeting approve the landfill recycling center line item budget of $427,638.
I'll second that.
Okay. I just have one quick question. It's more a curiosity question than it is because it sounds fine. It's just the, like the cardboard in that, there is no market for it anymore. So it's just, that's what part of the stuff we're carting off and sending places? Yeah, I see the nodding head back there. Okay.
Just a comment on
There's a lot of recycling efforts across the state, wherever else. There's not necessarily a viable market in the end for a lot of those materials that is sorted and separated. So where it does have value, we're doing it.
the verbiage that we had from last, same thing they did from last year, so.
Oh, okay. We'll have to try to get a copy.
Okay.
I'll give that to you and
All my copies are.
One's for the landfill, one's for the recycling, one's for landfill, one's for Board of Health.
oh, here you go.
The PFAS thing you
Oh, no,
mentioned, Mike?
they're-
No, they're both the same, two different things.
Two different
But
things.
the PFAS thing you mentioned?
Yes.
It's a mandate now, because we just got a notice, because we have a private water supply where I live. And now we have to do all that testing, and comply with EPA and
Well, the EPA just lowered, or
Yes,
raised the standards.
just
Is that
got
going to
no-
affect any of the
yeah, we just got no,
testing or the increase in price of that?
It won't change the price of the testing, it's
Okay.
just a new, they just set what the standard was, where there wasn't a EPA.
Yeah, there's a
The
standard.
EPA didn't have a standard before. Yeah.
we set thresholds when different spans of compliance.
So I have a, oops, I'm sorry. I have a first and second for the $427,638. Any other comments? All those in favor? That's 6-0. Great. All right, Michael. That was easy.
So Board of Health, again, there are no significant changes in this budget. From a staffing perspective, staffing remains the same. The clerical position at last year's town meeting, there was a motion to increase that line item to bring that position up to 32 hours versus 35 hours for a full-time person in town. This budget still reflects that.
At 32 hours,
At 32 hours, yep. And other than that, there are no material changes in this budget. And because it includes community health, I need to go back to the other piece.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah,
HC10.
yes. Sorry.
So, with that, I would make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve the Board of Health line item budget in the amount of $140,957.
Jim seconds. Any further questions or comments? Sounds pretty good. All those in favor? Okay, that's 6-0.
Jim?
Jim Wadding, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, community health.
And the last one is community health. Again, level funded at 5,000. That's for the outside service they use when they need community health nursing assistance and so forth. That's paid on a hourly or contract rate there. So I would make a motion that we recommend the town meeting approve the community health line item budget in the amount of $5,000.
I'll second that.
Not to let you off the hook easy, Mike, but I think you also have inspections and testing.
Oh, I can get to that too if you want. Did I skip that?
I think it's one of those ones that's
It's
buried
coming up,
inside of
it's
the
coming
board.
up.
Okay,
Let's
yeah,
get through this one.
exactly. Okay. Any other questions for community health? All those in favor? That's 6-0.
And Ken did give the memos are kind of his
Yeah.
budget summry, so we'll just make copies and get those to the rest of the members
everybody,
after for some.
Can I ask you a quick question? Did you guys just say 140-some-odd thousand for our, am I reading that?
It's the total budget we're voting at
Hang on,
149.57.
hang on.
Or Board of Health.
You're right. So I'm reading Board of Health, FinCom recommended, does say 149.57.
Yeah. No, in that one, I think the community health and the inspections and testing are in.
Yeah, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
in that, yeah, in the
In the D32 part or whatever. this is.
There's
the
more
more
than one-
detailed one, I think it's,
Yeah.
has a couple of them in there.
So wait a second, wait a,
My salary line item.
Oh, my. Yeah, that's 420.
so page D33, Board of Health shows a total of 198,241,
Right.
which includes $5,000 for the community health. So that would make it 193,241.
That's getting close, that's getting closer, that's why I was 140-something, I was trying to weigh, I'm missing my
right.
body.
So what am I missing here?
You're not, there's something
Well,
wrong.
the public health inspector is under,
It also includes the health inspector.
you see in the salaries? On page D33.
Right,
Oh, so you want inspections and testing as community health, so, okay.
Oh, so all of those go
I see
together.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yet they're broken out here,
okay.
Okay,
yeah.
Got to bundle them all together.
But
so,
they're all in one, on
We still need
D3,
to-
D33, they're all in
Yep.
one.
Okay.
We get-
So,
that confuses
with
everybody.
that clarification, the,
so it's the 149.
on page C10, the inspections and testing budget is $52,284, which is part of the D33 page. So
So it's the
I will
140
make-
plus the 5 plus the 52? Okay.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, that's in
I
there
will
too.
make a motion that
It's all on the
we
same
recommend town meeting approve the inspections and testing line item of $52,284.
I'll second that.
Jim seconds. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That's 6-0. Great. Beautiful.
I had a question. Ken, we won't be able to read the documents that you submitted tonight. I'll make copies and distribute.
Yeah, I have to
Do you have
distribute.
any comments to make, anything we should know about, other than,
No, what I submitted was, when we talked the other day, I told you I'd get to the verbiage that we've got. Last year, I didn't really get the same place, so it's the same thing, the backups for the written backups for why the line items are the way they are, and what we're seeing. So, we still would like to come and see you guys and discuss some long-term stuff, maybe in August, September.
Oh, okay.
great, yeah.
If you want to reach out with like some agenda topics you want to put together, and we can,
Yeah,
yeah,
the big
schedule
one
something.
is this landfill and like with that issue, you're hearing changes are happening there, there are positive changes going that way, so, probably nice on your side, so we have some, I can't say definitive, but we have more concrete, volumes of where we think we may end up, how far out we are, so we can
Oh,
think about
okay.
planning and that kind of stuff,
Oh, excellent.
so.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's not stressful, but it's,
Oh,
we definitely have.
Oh, he's telling you to come up to the speaker because
reprimanded.
and I should have thought of that too, because the other night I was like, people were talking from back there at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I couldn't understand a word.
I'm sorry,
Anyway, so-
I'm new here. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ken Lacey, I'm the health agent.
Oh, hi, nice to meet you.
Meet you.
MC Porter.
Nice to meet you. So yeah, the verbiage is just gonna discuss the same line items we talked about. When coming back to see you guys, August, September would be great to talk about longevity and the length of the landfill and what we're finding out there and,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah, give you
That's
guys
a
a.
big topic, so, yeah.
Well, it is, but it gives us a better handle on, we know that we're in that 10-year plus or minus marker, so we got plenty of time to work with, and we're making changes and positive things up there.
And last year, you had discussed with us some things, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but if we took certain steps, we could dramatically extend the life of the landfills, like compacting and
Yeah,
we could ship out and.
Yep, we have other issues that are hitting front and before that, so there are ways to extend if we do, but every one of those extensions are gonna cost something. So, doing what we're doing right now, it looks like we have about 10 years, which is a good place to be.
Okay.
So, I'd like to be able to make a presentation, talk to you guys, and let you know what's there, so you know in your planning scheme where we're at and what's going on.
Great.
Other than that, everything is pretty much what I wrote and
Okay,
just defends those line items.
great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Great. Well, Heather, I guess you have to come up and sit at a microphone.
Thank you, Ken.
Do you have a key to the building now? They give you a key?
I do have a key to the building.
I think so.
Don't make me set the lock and make sure it's, the alarm and everything like that, but I do. Just don't make me do it,
Things last week.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the annual town meeting warrant articles, starting with the water department, which is Article 28 on page 18 of the new file we are using, which is named 2024 ATM warrant version 2, 2024-0418.
But I can still refer to my notes on the previous copy.
Okay. It's Article 28, it's the water department. They're looking to basically raise and appropriate $1.7 million to run the department next year, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All of which is going to be collected through rates
Yes.
and requires a rate increase of about 8%.
Isn't that in the box? Usually they put it.
It is in the
Yes,
box.
it's in the box, yeah.
I only have one question, and I don't know what party answers it. But, so, we have that Stallion Hill project coming up. that's related to the water system. And we know it has a 50-year life cycle. And so right now in 2024, it's going to cost us 3.3 million. So in 2074, I mean, just using a rough number, let's say it's going to cost $6 million to replace it. And, you know, it never doesn't matter what other things come along the way. Why are we not accounting for something that's a known replacement cost by charging, you know, in the reserve, putting basically if you take, you know, 6 million divided by 50 years, it's $120,000. Why is the reserve account not $195,000 to build up for the known expense that we will be incurring?
So
Yep.
there is, that was in the works in planning to be able, so the tank is only one part of it, and it's only one tank, right?
Right, I know, there's all others,
There's
yeah.
multiple tanks, and there's maintenance on those tanks on a regular basis. You know, they have to be painted, that's another cost. We have water mains that we know need to be replaced, those are other costs. We have a water treatment system that some of you had the pleasure of walking through and seeing what condition it was in, and knowing that is another cost. So we're always going to have those costs, and in the future, once our asset management planning is done for both water and wastewater, we'll have a list of those assets with values, with life terms, with that, so we can start building some of into the rate. Right now, all we have is, we are still in fire mode, I would say. We're putting out the fires by finding what's the most important thing to address. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not against it. I think we have to look at it a very holistic approach. We can't just start firing away. We're already raising rates on everybody 8% in water this year, and if you look at what sewer is and people that have sewer, they're looking at a 20% increase this year. If we put another 100,000 on that, I'm not going to sit here and recalculate what that
Yeah.
rate is, but that's another substantial, I mean, we were talking, the increase this year is only 149,000.
Right.
So if you're going to put another 100,000 on it,
It must
you're
be
talking
doubling.
another 5 or 6%. I think we need to, next year, with the tank, once we have to start paying that interest, you're talking a 20% increase there.
So,
And I would,
10 to 20, depending on what is decided, correct. But-
and there was a study funded last year, year before, to help the.
So they started to do a
water and
rate
sewer
study
Commissioners to come up with rates.
So we started to do a rate study. What was missing, in part of so what you're talking about is having a very good plan of what your capital needs are, correct? So since I've been here, and I am very upfront about it, my background in I was a consultant before I ever worked for a town, okay? So my consulting background, although I did remediation stuff, I loved water and sewer work. I did a lot of it. I'm not an expert of what the prices are and costs are, but I'm pretty good at sitting down and saying, that tank's 50 years old and it's starting to sprawl, you're gonna need another one. The paint on this one is 20-year-old, because I've done enough of these projects. We need to get a holistic list, which is what our asset management project is which we got a grant to do. So this is grant funding, we're working with Ty and Bond, we're going to get this list. Once we have that list of our assets, right? We have a treatment plant here, a well here, this many miles of pipe, this whole thing, we'll have a better sense of putting numbers on some of those. I have a spreadsheet. It's very crude. It's very, sometimes I always use the analogy, I can throw a dart at a dartboard pretty good to get a range of it's how many millions, and that's really what I'm doing. Oh, that's $1 million project, that's a $2 million project. You know, I don't want to bring that and propose that without having somebody in the engineering world do it. So we're working towards that, but I think you want a holistic approach, just not, okay, we're just going to put this in the savings account, because
No,
the
I
savings
appreciate
account
that.
gets rated if we don't have a,
but now, this is just because a lot of these projects, as well-intentioned as they are in the public sector, get started, they don't really have a finish line. Does this one have a finish date when it will be completed?
so we're just starting it, so I'm hoping that by next year we'll be able to build that and show you the asset management.
For the budget or post or after? You know what I'm saying? Is it 1 year in June or July, or, 1 year will, oh, you know what? You're right. Next year, two's a different, we start 2 months earlier.
Right,
it's
so we
gonna
have
be-
less, I'm hoping
We
that
have
we'll
less
have a
time.
start on it to be able to use it for next year's budget.
Okay.
I just, we're just starting, so
Are you focusing on one department or the other, or just doing it, all of it at once? type
it's
of thing?
gonna, it's,
They overlap somewhat?
yeah, they,
Okay.
they're gonna be here doing their data collection and everything, so they're probably gonna do it, we're gonna come and collect it for all the
So,
towns.
so we could say safely, though, like October 2025, it will be complete?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to hold you to that now.
I
I'm going
know.
to write this down here.
So, that gives me a year and a half, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I know, it gives you some time.
You're a consultant that actually does it too.
Yes. No, it's, right, it's a joint effort between us and the consultant to do this. I mean, part of the grant is that we have to work.
So the next step then is, and Barb's on the line, the next step when you get all these monies you will be required from the capital is to go out and finance it, whatever that may be, and then whatever the financing charges are, go out and spread it out to the people, the users that benefit from
Right,
this.
so what you do is you take that asset management and you use it as your plan, and you say, well, I may not have big projects this year, and hopefully you're gauging as your debt is dropping on and off, that you're trying to keep a consistent debt level, so that you're not seeing huge spikes. Yes, you might have to see incremental increases, but you're not that you somehow are managing that we're not doing this 8 to 0 to 8 to 20,
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying,
That
yeah.
is not
That's not good for anybody. Consistency is good.
good for anybody. We should look at a small trajectory so that we can build up some of those finances, and then we're going to spend them down, and then we're going to build them up again, right? It's going to be the cyclic process.
Yeah, there's again, I don't go back to the policy, but before your time, and this, the last one was amended as 2017 that I see, and the same thing you're saying, water and sewer capital plan should attempt to invest in the town's water and sewer system at a rate that does not place a dramatic increase on the tax, exactly what you're saying. But so if somebody in 2017 or 15 or 13 or 14 actually did this along the way, we wouldn't be trying to, the snake swallowing the cow or whatever, right?
We'd be in a lot better shape.
Exactly. So right now, we're playing catch-up, and we are seeing dramatic rates, just what this thing is tried to prevent from happening.
And some of what is happening to us and with this 8% increases that we're seeing is we're still seeing the effects of what happened in COVID. We're hit particularly hard in the water and sewer industry because manufacturing is still limited for our industry.
Yeah.
The prices are still skyrocketingly high. You're talking major, large pieces of equipment. The steel is high. All of those things are high. Those prices, where some prices might seem to be coming back into a normal, they haven't returned yet. We order things, we ordered a piece of equipment over a year ago, and we still haven't got it in yet. And it's not just a car, this is just, so, timelines of sometimes when we need things, it's ridiculous. It's, okay, yeah, that's, 20 weeks out from something that we used to be able to go buy off the shelf. So it's a little bit changing. Maybe they're still catching up. Let's hope they're still catching up. Some of the players have gone away, which it doesn't help us. We don't have as diverse of a marketplace to buy things from.
I think you need to nail it ahead. I think the plan is everything. I think you had the plan, like what you were saying, back and you can't go back. And then we looked at some of the financing a few years back at 2%. We could have looked and said, wait a second, this is a good time to do it. Now we're saying we're going to put the plan together, let's do some of this, and now we're talking 7, 8%, not 2. But we can't go back. So you're on the right direction that I see.
We're going to have to pick and choose our projects still because, that water tank, that's a big nugget, we all know that. I mean, that's a big price tag, but it's a big tank, and it's very important to the whole, the whole water system, the whole community. If we don't have it, we're going to be in.
So Kevin, I would just add, I think it's inconsistent with utility rate making to be collecting money now for things that need to be replaced 50 or 60 years down the line. You would have some kind of retained earnings or something, and that's kind of like the money that goes back into the water fund there that we
It's our
draw
our
out
fund
of kind of
balance,
thing.
and we do.
But you wouldn't be asking people who are on the system today to be paying for some major capital investment that needs to take place 50 or 60 years down the road.
I
You kinda manage
I
that over
agree,
time.
50 or 60 years is an extreme example, but I was just trying to say, this was something with a number that we know about.
In the next 5 years, what projects were coming
But-
up, and if there's peaks and valleys, we should be
That
leveling it out.
prudent type of looking ahead, right? To say, like Heather's saying, we're gonna have a fund balance to do these projects over certain time. That is part of the cost of operating each system. That, it has to be. It hasn't been, but it should be.
Yeah.
Now,
Instead of
This
reacting.
this current fund, water fund balance of 1.4 million, is any of that being used for,
So when we get into some of our other articles for water, you'll see one that we're taking fund balance.
Taking it
money.
out, okay.
So, and I will say this, it is typical. So our fund balance is our reserve account.
Like our free cash account.
Like the free cash account for typical. So $1 million, if something major happened, $1 million isn't enough to cover it.
Is gone, yeah.
That tank rupturing, we're talking a $3 million tank. So we need to keep, $1 million is really where we want fund balances to be. You can see our sewer fund balance is really, really low right now.
145,000?
Yeah, so that's a little concerning for us on the other side. So $1 million is good, as the fund balance will fund projects out of it, like we are, one of the projects for the water department is being funded out of that. But
Okay.
obviously, there's not enough money.
And I don't think the budget should operate in silos either, because like what Kevin was saying, I mean, a lot of the spirit of a lot we talk about is living within your means. And if that's part of the operational process and you know it's coming down, you can you look around and say it doesn't exist, but it does. And if you're spending money, town money elsewhere, other departments and everywhere else, knowing there's a big liability up ahead, you're not living within your means. You're fooling yourself, okay? Something's it has to happen. So with the 60-year thing, I don't know, yeah, that's way out there, but there's got to be a happy medium and a realistic medium, and it's got to be part of the whole budget, because let's face it, sewer and water are pretty basic before a lot of other things happen, right? It's nice to put flowers in, but if you can't flush your toilet and get water, that might be a bigger issue for most people. But, so we can't look at this as in a silo. So if you have an issue and it's going to cost the town money here, then they may have to look other places and say, how do we manage within our means, okay, as a whole? Not silo, which we okay, just.
So Kevin, the other thing I would point out is I had a little fun this weekend going through 10 years' worth of special town meeting and annual town meeting warrants to figure out what we've been spending on water and sewer and a few other things here. But to something Heather pointed out here, if I go back to FY 2015, the debt service piece of that water bill was $572,000. It has steadily declined over each of the 10 years. So this year, last year was $383,000, bumps up a little bit this year because of some borrowings we did not too long ago. But the capital replacement line item there, back then, was relatively small, 14,000, 20,000. Last couple of years, it's been 80, 50,000, 110,000 last year. So it's the longer-term stuff that you have to borrow and pay off versus,
So our
funding some of the smaller pieces.
So
that
our
are in.
capital replacement in that is in-year capital replacements. So it's smaller item capital replacements,
Yep.
not small, because like Jim asked me what was in there, and I said, well, one of the things is there is a replacement generator. We had a generator go at one of our wells. We need to have backup power at the wells, because they do lose it, and if you don't have it, then we can't operate that well.
$100,000 worth of logic controls we have to replace.
$100,000 worth of process logic controllers, which we looked at when we went to the plant. They are in age, and if we don't have them, we're in real big trouble. So we're trying to make responsible replacements and be responsible. That's what we put in there. I call them smaller. They're not small. 65 grand isn't small for a generator.
UV
But
disinfection system we talked about,
we
how
need
much
to-
is that?
We make, that is part of the Trunium process that we selected. It's very yearly cost of maintenance. It's very effective, but it's very high cost. It's proprietary, so we pay a proprietary company because they have a proprietary system. They're the only place we can get the parts, and they're the only ones who come and do the work. Interesting. So, and there are many UV companies, but once you have a Trojan system, They have limits on anybody, you can't even touch their logic, so.
Really?
Hydrants at $5,000 apiece?
Hydrants have hydrants are an example of one thing that after COVID has skyrocketed in price. They used to be like 2,500, not even 2 or 3 years ago, and they're $5,000 a piece now.
I had a question, though.
Are you done making your comment related to the rates? I wanted to let Mike finish his
And I think the other side of that is, you know, we're talking about an 8% increase in here, some increases in rates, and it has to do with between what you collect from rates versus what we can use from that fund. But, you know, if I look back at these budgets, 1.4 million 10 years ago, you know, we were at 1.6 million, you know, overall, that's not a huge increase over 10 years.
Not
But
compared
some
to
of these
our
big
overall town
expenditures we
budget.
got coming out here are going to, you know, certainly put some pressure on that and increase those budgets going forward, especially if we got to borrow $3 million for a tank and start paying that back, even over a 20 or 25-year loan life, so.
Money.
Question I had, I should know the answer to this. I know that we have a flat rate for sewer, a flat rate quarterly.
We have both. We have a flat rate for anybody that doesn't have isn't also connected to the water, so they pay a flat rate for sewer. And then we have a metered rate based on your water usage.
So if they're on sewer but not town water, there's a
Correct.
flat rate because
Wait,
unless you put a meter,
correct.
you can't meter the sewage. Okay, I didn't understand.
Yeah, so if you have, you know, we have many E1 pumps around the lakes, they don't have water around, most of the lakes don't have
Right.
water also. So they pay what's called the flat rate versus, so they're only paying for sewer on a flat rate. And then if you have both water and sewer, you're paying based on your water meter usage.
Based on the numbers I see
And I
here.
can't tell if I come out ahead or behind by having that flat rate versus trying to, you know, put a
You never
meter on
know.
my well to see how much comes in versus go out and come out ahead, but it is what it is when you can't, you don't
I
have.
had that same situation in Southbridge when I lived there. I had a well with town sewer. So they said, this is what you pay. If you want us to throw a meter on your water, good luck. And I said, no, I think I'll take what I have. But just as a perspective, give some perspective, because I did the arithmetic. So right now, with the new rate, $8.45 per 100 cubic feet, that's about a penny a gallon. And on the sewer rate, that's about 2 cents a gallon that you have to pay to get rid of. So you paid a penny a gallon for the water to bring it in, and you're paying 2 cents a gallon to get rid of what's going out, just to put a number on it.
Compared to what you buy a bottle of water at the store for, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it is. It is, yeah. It's true. That's why I brought it up.
Any,
I was gonna say, is this gonna be a continuous problem just because of volume? I mean, we don't have, some people are on wells, some people are on septic, but you have fixed costs, a huge fixed
Yes.
cost. So you
So
only have a
the-
certain amount, a number, unless
So
you increase the number, it's never gonna get
Exactly. It's a
down.
little bit counterintuitive. There is a point in any water and sewers size that it's really not effective to have one. Like in small communities have seen this, and we're not a huge community. We don't have huge numbers. The only way to make this seem more affordable would be to have more users on both systems.
right.
Did anybody ever look at putting sewers, I mean?
Yes. There was a whole sewering plan done
So
when the
there's, right,
wastewater
so there's
treatment.
lots of plans in different areas to go, and there was, when the wastewater treatment plant was upgraded, and I still have
Yeah, I
most
have
of these
that
documents,
somewhere
they had plans of where to sewer next. The problem is that comes with their own infrastructure costs because you have to extend the sewers, or you have to extend the
of
water
course,
systems. And that, you know, that means that when you do an extension like that, that triggers what's the betterment process. So the community, the people that have to want it, because you have to have so many people that want it to be able to have it. And then the cost for that upgrade for extension is borne by those residents. So unfortunately, just like everything else, even those costs have gone up. So where is it reasonable, and how many people to be able to do that betterment? Now, we have been approached by different people in different neighborhoods for different things. We, if you listened to the last meeting, Robin gave an update. Walker Pond has some contamination problems over there in a lot of their wells. It's salt related, probably from the mast pike. We've been teaming with Mass DOT to do some preliminary investigation of what could be done. Can we extend the water system over there? And we have some preliminary numbers. The report is right now being reviewed at Mass DOT. So, but those numbers are very large. And even though there's a lot of houses over there, we're not sure that it's gonna financially work. I mean,
Well,
we have an added need of having to get to the other side across from the Mass
How do you mean-
Pike.
how are you getting there?
Yeah,
Well, but that's part of the design, that's part of the process,
Well,
the
Kathy,
evaluation.
Bridge, yep.
and Kathy would know this too, there was a period maybe 15 years ago, or whatever,
They
the
looked at
town
sewer.
undertook a sewer study to
Yeah.
bring it.
It was more than that. It's more
And
like
it was going
20.
down. It's been a while. huh?
It was over 20 years ago.
The water goes from the Stallion Hill tank under the bridge over Route 84.
Yeah.
Right under that bridge and goes
Goes on
across
that bridge.
84 underneath
Bridge,
it.
that's a
So
com-
that's what gets it to River Road.
I don't know what the final tally was, but a few years ago, the town meeting set aside $1 million just to replace the water line
Right,
on Maple
so
Street. So
the
you got
good
this short
news-
little run up here,
Right.
is $1 million project.
Well, it ended up coming in about $500,000, which
good.
was good. So, we can say that also, that we don't know until we go out for a bid price. We have an engineer's estimate based on what they've seen at other sites of what the water tank's gonna cost, right? We don't know that it's gonna be,
Robin, are you talking to us?
She just unmuted her line. She's
But
not
we
on.
did, we bought a vacant lot close to the Southbridge line in case we needed a pumping station. But I
Yes.
think Robin must have negotiated the price we got from Southbridge, and it wasn't worthwhile for us to be pumping it back because they gave us a good enough
We
price
are-
to continue to take our waste.
Yeah, we're kind of going all over the place. Let's stick
Sorry.
with the water department.
so with the water, right, we're always looking to expand the system is something we're
I don't
always
care, whoever
considering.
wants to.
I'll make the motion, since Mike. I'll make a motion to approve Article 28.
As written. Okay, so, hang on.
I motion to recommend to town meeting that we pass, that they,
I'll second.
And Mike Hager seconds. Any other questions or comments related to the water department? All those in favor? And that's 6-0. Okay, sewer department. It's similar type of thing, another independent budget, for the sewer operations at $3.4 million. And I was gonna ask the same question again of, why aren't we adding more into reserve? But I think you've taken care of that, and that asset management plan is gonna work for the sewer department as well. And then by October 2025, in time for fiscal year '26, we should start to see these numbers adjust so that we're planning for replacements and maintenance that's foreseeable in the next 5 to 10 years, or 5 to 8 years, or whatever horizon we agree on. Is that
No,
how
I
you
think
see it?
we can, right, I think that we'll use that to be able to come up with a rate study, and that's one of the ways that rate studies look at. They look at what your debt level is, what your upcoming debt is, and they make small tweaks so that you can see that fund balance potentially go up for additional projects. There is a limit on what you can do. Like, you're not gonna probably fund them all, but you're hoping that you can see, and you're hoping that you can take your projects and schedule them out so that, we have debt dropping off and we can keep the same debt level going forward. Does that make sense?
So if you look at the line items in
Or
our
make
budget-
it small
Right.
incrementally up?
Yeah, so I
the
think,
line items in the sewer
I'm doing-
department
so if you look at the line items in both the water and sewer department, I think what we're saying is, rather than rates or whatever, you look at that, can we forecast what each of those line items are gonna be for the next 5 years, 10 years, right? So the contract rate, you can assume an escalation rate and go
Yes.
from there. But I think the big variables in both of those lines are, what's the capital replacement piece, and what's our debt service? And if
Yep.
Heather comes up with a capital plan, she can sit here and say, I need a big capital investment 3 years down the road, and we borrow for that, here's how it's gonna play out, or I need the cash, here's how much I need, and then she can play around with, okay, I gotta make the big one, so I only need, $20,000 worth of small things to do in that year. This year I can do some of the others,
Yes.
and you can come up with that, here's what my needs are, here's what the rates
So you're
are.
not seeing it
level it
go
out.
up.
Right, but you also want, like,
She's still gonna have to make a choice some year of, I got $700,000 worth of things to fix, and the budget only allows me to do 500. What are the most critical ones, and can I
But
get
there,
5 of those
there
till next year?
also needs to be a amount of money that's undesignated to handle unexpected events.
Right.
And right now, the $245,000 that are in that sewer fund balance, based on just our little tour, I mean, I think we looked at one pump on one of the tanks, and I'm like, there's $60,000 right there. I mean, that's, if that goes, I mean, so that needs to be seriously taken into account, that there is at least some type of threshold for an unallocated expense. But a lot of this stuff, like you're saying, you can plan out for.
That's why you have reserves too, right? I mean, you have
Yeah, and
reserves for
there's-
that reason.
right.
The
And you
capital
can see-
replacement line
I
right
mean,
now,
reserve shouldn't be because of the lack of planning. Reserve should be you planned well and something happened, not you reserve because you didn't plan.
But Kevin's
That's,
point
you
is,
know.
that reserve is so low, we have to build that.
Oh, no,
before we
no,
start
and we have other
doing it.
reserves, we have other reserves we can probably.
That's
right now, we have
exactly, yeah.
capital replacement at 383,000, that's an increase of 316,000. So a lot of that was unanticipated, but maybe,
Well,
okay.
The people at the higher sewers and water, all we're saying is
I went back and
hold
looked.
on, because you're gonna get hit again.
That line last year was 316,000 less than it is now.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, so Heather knows exactly what we paid for. Some of this stuff was unexpected.
Hey, Robin? As a whole, a budgetary perspective, the whole big picture budget, when you get a situation like this where maybe some reserves prior to your time and everybody else's time, it should have taken place, and now we are where we are, how do you approach that, or what do you do? Now, I mean, you got only a certain amount of monies, and obviously you got a cost per the whole town, right? And now the situation is not going away. It's water and sewer, which is basics. You can't, push it aside. What's your thought about that?
Well, the challenge is that you can't look at it as a whole budget issue because you can't have non-ratepayers pay for the costs in those budgets.
Right.
Now, we'll have to objectively look at what costs are in those budgets. So, for example, Heather's salary, a portion is paid for the water sewer percentage-wise, but ratepayers don't pay for the rest of her, for that portion, if you will. The same thing with the tank today. We're looking at what effectively is realistically okay to place overall on the budget. But I have to tell you, it's a very limited amount of things that we can do that with. Kevin's right, you kind of have to plan while you don't want to over-budget to create, let's say, a savings account, if you will. I think one of the things you do look at is just like we have capital stabilization funds in our budget, you can fund stabilization type funds, and that's really the only way to handle this. The problem is the numbers are big. And the other thing is, you have to consistently raise rates to keep up with costs. So, I think Barbara sent out a sheet earlier that showed that in several years, there were very, very minimal rate changes, and they used fund balance to do that. And we've talked about the dangers of using the cash to fill a budget, the dangers of using fund balance to do a budget. So in an effort to keep rates reasonable, which was, a real effort, using the fund balance actually is what set this up, and we're trying to dig out of that hole now.
Right.
And I think funding stabilization funds through ratepayers at reasonable rates, we keep our costs as best as we can, but a lot of this is contractual. Fortunately, we did renew with Veolia for 5 years at the rate and that we were already established at, so we don't have to look at a huge increase in the cost of our privatization. So this would be the time before that happens in 5 years, when we have to go back out to bid and we know the cost will go up because it's just the nature of it, to start funding stabilization funds as best as we can. But that means reasonable, as Heather said, reasonable increases every year. I hope that answers it. It's just we're very limited on what we can do from a big scale standpoint with the budget, other than being prudent about what can come out of the general budget
No,
and
that's
not
fair.
be disingenuous to non-ratepayers who shouldn't have to fund the sewer system.
That's good, that makes sense, yep.
Is everyone satisfied? Because
Yeah.
I've got the list we talked about of all the things you, anyway, so I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting that they support or vote in favor of Article 29.
Okay,
As written. Yep, I'll second.
like seconds?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, Kathy, go ahead.
In the summary for this article on the Did you do water or sewer?
We've already voted water, this is on sewer.
That's what I thought. It says the flat sewer rate
Yep.
is 228. Is that a quarter or a year? I'm not on it, so I have no idea.
Quarter. That's a quarterly
I think you
rate.
should probably put that in.
Yep.
That.
Yeah, probably
That
should say
box,
that.
because-
It says that in the summary she could, that Kevin sent out today.
Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't.
The-
I don't know
That's the
how,
quarterly
we'll
flat
have to
rate.
figure out
I
how
thought it
to
was,
add the wording in there.
But if you're not on sewer, you
Yeah,
wouldn't
we
know
can-
that.
No, yeah, that would be really cheap.
Well, it sounded cheap. It sounded more like a quarterly to me,
Yes.
but if you had no experience
Still
with
cheap.
ever paying the sewer rate, you really wouldn't know.
Right. That is the quarter.
And you wouldn't know even with the cubic feet, because, again, you have no idea.
I think that what Jim said is a very good, I always wanted to do that in Southbridge because everybody would always complain every time I'd get up there and I'd be like, I'm just gonna bring a bottle of water and say, how much do you pay for this? And be like, but you're right, it's a penny a gallon, and, you go buy a gallon of water at the store, you're paying over $1. And that's not even the good stuff.
Way over $1.
Yeah. I don't buy it, so.
I don't buy it.
Okay, so I have a first and a second to approve Article 29 sewer budget as written. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? 6-0. Great, thank you. All right, next, wastewater treatment plant clarifier coating and painting.
We already voted on 30?
Yes, sewer project betterments, yes. That was when we were still on the board, because it's our one abstain vote. Everything was 7-0 to 1 that night.
She was on this.
All right, so this is a 2/3 vote. Based on some of the comments, made, their motion has slightly changed. The borrowing language says specifically at the last sentence was added, while any bonds and notes issued pursuant to this vote will constitute general obligation debt of the town. It is expected that any such debt will be paid from user rates and charges. And so that, goes to what Barbara was saying, like any of the borrowing, we are the payee of last resort. They're coming after the town if, to pay it after. But the intent, and in specific here, is to have ratepayers pay it as part of the fees.
I have a question two questions on that. I think last week, you had mentioned that we typically specify in these borrowing who pays for that. When I have gone back and looked over the warrants for the last 10 years, for all the borrowing articles, with the exception of Karen Road betterment, none of the borrowing articles, even the ones related to water and sewer, have that clause or specified who the ratepayers are. So this is a deviation from what we've done in the past. So I guess from a board's perspective, I'm trying to find out why we're deviating starting this fiscal year, and this is what we're going to do for all articles going forward. And then I guess from Barbara, even though it still leaves the town on the hook, and this is just guidance versus you're limiting the pool of money you can get it back from, are we comfortable that we're not impacting the ability to raise money efficiently here by placing that caveat at the end of these articles?
She got the language from bond counsel.
Yeah, so I checked with bond counsel just based on the concerns that you all had last week. He said that in communities when there is a concern, that this is the language that, they have recommended. But as I stated last week, regardless of what you put in an article, once we borrow the money, we have an obligation to pay it. And so if there were not, for whatever reason, sufficient funds in a water or sewer budget, it is an obligation of the town. Personally, I don't think that language is necessary in these two articles because we know what the policy is in the town, and that is that a water or a sewer, the debt comes from water or sewer users unless it's explicitly stated, which I do feel that the article for the 3.3 million would have to have some type of language to make it clear that we're deviating from practice so that there's no questions. But again, we can add the language, bond counsel was fine with that.
And you're not concerned that by adding that language, you're gonna end up with a slightly higher rate than had that language not been in the article? Because there's still gonna,
Yeah.
regardless of what's in there, your lender is gonna say, I got the whole town of Sturbridge on the hook, I don't care who they try to get the money from. Okay.
Yeah, the amounts of paper that we have to sign when we borrow indicate that.
You're saying, unless explicitly mentioned, stated that, we're saying that it's automatically assumed that the users and the people that benefit or will in fact pay for it. Right?
Correct.
It's implied.
Yes.
Right, so, okay, so,
It's not explicit, though. It's not written anywhere. I went looking for it.
yeah.
It's been practiced. It's been practiced for a long time.
And if it wasn't there, and someone wants to, try to collect it from the entire town versus just water users, then the next budget cycle, in the general budget here, we'd have extra line items below the senior center for particular borrowing for both principal and interest. And, we could, if we disagree with that, can always recommend that town meeting approve a lower amount for debt and interest, and then have this, be part of the water and/or sewer budget in there. So there are other controls to at least bring it to the attention of people in town. But if it doesn't impact Barbara's borrowing, then it can stay in there. Just
So
note that it's a
your concern
deviation.
is that you don't want it to increase the rate that we're going to borrow at because it's limited to the users.
Yeah, if I'm lending the town money, I'm gonna say, hey, I expect to get this back no
Right.
matter what. Hey, they put this language in here. Now, instead of having, the entire town and the tax base on the hook for paying me back, I've got just these water users. And what happens if they don't raise the rates, they don't do whatever, now I got a higher risk, the premium for this borrowing is going to go up.
If you look at the language also, you'll know it says expected that any such debt will be paid from user rates and charges. It doesn't tie us to that is the only place that we can take that debt from.
Right, and I guess the
again,
caveat for you and
If we had a true enterprise fund, a water sewer enterprise fund, I mean, these are the things that when you have these type of funds, you know that's where the money is going to come from. We're not going to take it from somewhere else. So, for instance, if we were not clear on the $3.3 million borrowing that we're going to get to, then the assumption would be, if there was nothing that indicated that if we end up going with the 50-50 split from your vote, there would be nothing in there that would indicate anything other without adding language that it was going to be paid 100% from the water rates.
And I guess there is an out, right, because the word expected is in there. So while we think it's going this way,
Right.
should something change a year, 2 years down the road, and people want relief from water and sewer rates because they can't cover it, there's nothing to stop, the budget process from reallocating it back to general tax base if
it had
there
to
wasn't
be,
money over there, because the word is expected, but it's not, a requirement.
Increasing the rates to recover it from the users.
So, it just makes it clarifies it and gives us, I wanted the clarification personally.
Yeah.
As I said, we haven't done that in previous articles, so.
Well, no,
it's a
because
deviation.
I actually haven't seen a lot of borrowing articles for water and sewer work. Right, there's a lot of water stuff like this stuff we borrow to do the senior center.
So we authorized the borrowing of $1.1 million for the Maple Street water line. We can put it in there, $481,000 for St. Anne's and Fiscal tank maintenance, to replace the media at the water plant. We didn't have that in that article 2 years ago. $200,000 to replace the generator.
I have
over
to
at the
say,
sewer plant. We didn't do that.
in this particular budget process, I've learned a lot. And if I had known then what I now know, I would have asked for that language then.
Well, right now you're talking 3.3 million
Yeah.
and another, that's a different game.
And I don't disagree that it's part of the water system, that's where it's got to go, and there's going to be a big impact to water users and sewer users from these things, and it's going to be difficult for, elected members who are water and sewer commissioners to
They dug the
have to
hole.
be the ones versus rely on town meeting to make that vote, so.
Okay.
May I ask, just real quick, I mean, are things like this in the next article that we're gonna talk about, these are, because of the values, they're bid out?
Yes.
Okay, so are these just guesstimates right
Those
now?
are, they're just estimates now, they still have to be bid.
Okay.
So we're
So it could be
doing,
higher, it could be lower.
right, we have a pretty good, for the painting project, we have a pretty good idea, because we are in the process of, we just bid one of these.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing one of these painting projects, so we kind of have a sense of what the costs are gonna be, and it's basically for the same type of tank, we have 3 of these large clarifiers that are steel tanks that, they need to have special coating, because they're in the wastewater, they're
Right.
literally submerged in the wastewater all day long, and they need to be repainted and recoated. And as we spoke about at the tour, our process, although it's state-of-the-art, which is great and gives us really great, high-quality wastewater treatment, it also is very aggressive. And at the time, when they designed it, they really didn't know, because it was state-of-the-art, and they didn't have one of these plants. So now,
We're learning.
we've learned that it is very aggressive, abrasive, so we have to, on top of corrosive, so we really have to maintain the tanks.
We basically sandblast the inside of the tank every time we're running. Yeah.
That's a good way to do it. That's a good way of saying what we do every day.
Yeah,
Have to read the whole motion.
yeah, we
And
do.
just one more question, the fact that it needs 2/3 vote, and these seem to be
That's a
pretty.
borrowing requirement.
That's a borrowing okay, thank you. I was just saying, because these seem to be important, what if
Correct.
we don't get the 2/3?
You're right.
Okay, thank you.
It's the borrowing requirement that there's
I
2/3.
just corrected that, yes.
Okay.
Just to be clear, though, so the maximum that we can spend for these articles is the amount that's in the article. So when we go out to bid, if the amount came in higher, we would have to go back to town meeting to get additional funds. So that 300,000 that you're seeing is the maximum we could spend. If the bid comes in lower, then we would just borrow less money, and then we would rescind the rest of the borrowing authorization.
Okay.
And we just had that happen on one of our other projects with the filter meter replacement. That's why we had to go back to special town meeting this year and get more money, because we came in above money that was allocated, which is so.
Okay, thank you.
I started researching a little bit, and I couldn't, because obviously this is not unique to our town, right? What we're going through here with the water, sewer, and not, but I just saw something in one town, and this is one, and it was for betterments, and it basically said about, and it mentions here, betterments, and includes appropriation for water, sewer, and stuff like that, and it says betterments are assessed. It's a way of apportioning the cost of these projects that are limited in scope, and others to the project, to the owners that actually receive benefit from these improvements, rather than appropriation of the cost to all taxpayers in town through regular property tax. So it's precedented that this has come up before many times, and it is documented places that they explain what it's used for, how.
That's a different, that we have betterments, you just saw the couple articles, the article previous, we have betterments that are paying off. When they did the water lines around the lakes, those were betterment projects, because it was specific to that group of users. So there's a different, they
I'm
pay
going
a
to just give you
different rate.
one quick example. Do you remember when we were having problems on McGilpin Road in the area of Fisk Hill with the leachate coming down from the thing in Southbridge and finding things? There was a study done, what would it cost to put in water line down there? And you divide the cost, because they wanted to do a loop, you divide the cost by the number of households on there. I think it was $120,000 per house would have been the betterment fee. Now, you don't have to, even if they put it in front of your house, you don't have to hook up. You still have to pay the betterment, because they made your property better. So that's just a side note, sorry.
This is more of a maintenance item versus a better.
Correct, this is a maintenance, this is a tank at the wastewater treatment plant, so it's all the users, so it's put the cost at all the users.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So it's
Yep.
not a limited sector of the users.
Yeah, get it.
Wait, no, Jim's gonna go here.
So I'll make the motion that the town appropriates $300,000 to pay the cost of recoating the wastewater treatment clarifier tank, including preparation of the steel and concrete and replacement and/or repair of any worn items, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 8, subsection 4, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. While any bonds or notes issued pursuant to this vote will constitute a general obligation debt of the town, it is expected that any such debt will be paid from user rates and charges. And that was voted 4-0-0 by the select board.
Second.
Okay, so Jim Waddick makes the motion, Mike Hager seconds. Any other questions and comments? All those in favor? That is 6-0. All right, so let me just move that up to here. And 6-0-0. There we go. All right, excellent. So let me check that off. All right, so the next article that I'm going to consider is Article 32, which is the prefabricated office building for the water treatment system. That was the building we went and saw with the
On our
heater
tour,
system that was on fire, well,
That had-
remnants of a fire.
had caught on fire, correct?
Yeah.
With the roof that is bowing so much that you're wondering why we were even standing in the building? Yes.
Will the building be used for anything like the storage of anything?
Yeah,
just
we
so-
will probably still store stuff in it, just because we're in such desperate need of storage space in addition to needing, but I think what we're really hopeful is that if we can get out of the building, that maybe we can start having some work done in the building to make it better. You know, we have access to Tantascwa's building department and electrical departments and things of that nature. If we can start maybe doing, you know, maybe we can have them, hey, can you put a new roof on this building for
yeah.
us? You know, with some planning, now that we're out of it and we don't feel like it's gonna fall down on our heads. You know, remember, our SCADA computers that run the whole water system
Are in there,
located
yeah.
in that building. So we really want to make sure that we're in a place that we feel like it's safe. You know, as Shane says, he brings a backup drive with him everywhere he goes because he doesn't trust that the building's going to be there. So, you know, it's one of those things that when you have to back your systems up so much that you don't know if the building's going to be there, we really want to make sure we get a place that they can operate safely, cleanly, with heat, with all of those things that, you know, are normal operating things for an office complex.
So is this, in my mind, when I hear prefabricated building, I'm thinking like, you know, a trailer
Yep.
type of thing.
Correct.
And that's what you're planning here is like
Yes.
one or two of these things?
Yeah,
that
double, like basically just like what they did at the bus. If you've been to my offices, they
Oh, for
put
the school.
a trailer in for the buses, for the bus company, I want to say, but really for the, you know, for the
bus operations.
the drivers and the operations, they have a trailer, and basically, we're looking at doing the same type of thing. Still on the footprint at the water plant, kind of at the edge of the driveway towards the woods, and again, we are able to help with some of the work, you know, we are able to run the water lines and the sewer lines and do that with my staff and Shane's staff. We have some planning, we're gonna have to go through conservation, you know, we're gonna have to do some permitting work and, you know, some site prep work, but some of that work can be done, and then we have to purchase that building, you know, prefab modular building, go out to bid and purchase that building and have it placed on site.
Okay.
They're not without their issues, but, you
It's
know.
better than what you have.
I think that's really where we are at, and I think that's, and when we asked for some, it should be said, we asked for cost just to have a new building built, and they were not, it was so expensive that neither me nor Shane could even straight-faced ask for that, knowing what the other needs in the department were. You know, we can, 400,000 is still a lot of money for something that's basically a
Motor,
10 to
right.
15 year fix, right? But we know it's going to make us get through that
Yes.
cycle to get to, onto where at least we can still operate there. Because it was millions, again.
Okay. Do we have any other? Go ahead.
I'm trying to remember what, for the bus building over there, I thought it was $200,000?
I think that it was around 2.
So it was $200,000 because all the site work had already been done, and there was no permitting associated. And they basically, so they bought the rentals that they had for 200. When we go out, we're probably gonna be asking for brand-new ones, not rental ones, so. And there have some issues, like, trust me, I hear about it a lot over there, about the floors are uneven now, and well, they're settling, we probably need to get in there and do some, it's been there for 2+ years, 3+ years. Actually, it was there before I got there, so it's been about 3 years. So, they are not without their issues. They're still trying to address some of those issues, so.
Okay, good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make the motion that the town, appropriates $400,000 to pay the cost of permitting, site preparation, including utilities connection, purchase and installation of a prefabricated office trailer for the operation of the water treatment system at 375 Main Street, otherwise known as 20 Waterworks Drive, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. While any bonds or notes issued pursuant to this vote will constitute general obligation debt of the town, it is expected that any such debt will be paid from user rates and charges.
Second.
Okay. Jim Heck, Mike Hager. Any other questions and comments on Article 32?
Well, just a completely unrelated comment, really, but I see they changed select board in some places, but in the article, in the motion, it's Board of Selectmen, so I don't know if they want to make that consistent at some point. But
I've been working on updating those since the election. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, let me just take care of this. All right, so it's prefabricated. I am going to skip the next article for the time being and come back to it because we can handle the other two votes and come back to ones with long discussions.
You're reading my mind, I was thinking.
Article 34, St. Anne's Tank Sampling and Control Building. So this is coming out of the Water Reserve Fund balance.
Correct.
For $320,000.
Correct.
And do we have one of these at every one of our tanks?
So we, at Stallion Hill, there is not one. At Fisk Hill, there is.
Okay.
There's a pump station there. So right now, what's there?
Is that little wooden building that's kind of tucked into the side?
So that was the old pump station. There's a new pump station building up in back of that. You probably can't even see it because the
okay.
building's still in front of it. There's a brand-new building up there, which has the pump station in it and has the
Fisk Hill.
controls at Fisk Hill. Yes. That was done a couple of years ago, prior to me being here. We're looking at trying to get that other building demoed. So that's still in the process. We're getting quotes for that right now. So this building, this tank, right now, has a sample port that's basically down in a cubby space. And does not meet any, it's not very sanitary, and we're collecting finished water samples out of it. It is a confined space, so whenever they do go and have to do it, which they have to do once a month, a monthly sample there, it's starting to become really a safety concern and a health concern. And we have been informally told by DEP that we'll likely get a notice of noncompliance for the way this is set up. So we're preparing to be able to make upgrades. And basically what we're going to do is put a small structure on top of this looks like a cellar hole pit. If you look at it, it looks like a little shed roof cellar hole, and make it so that there's a small structure on top that you can walk in. We'll make the water come up to that level so they can collect their sample. The pipes will still go underneath, but it will have a structure that you can walk in. You can do your pressure readings, you can take your sample, and it can be all much more safe and much more sanitary. When I say sanitary, there's a lot of animals that like to live in there.
When you say
Exposed
small,
to the weather, so you get snow, rain.
Exactly,
everything.
they can get in there and they say, oh, this is a nice, just like your house, right? Anything that can get in, will gonna get in.
when you say small structure, what size are we talking here?
I haven't even stood over the existing pit. It's probably, but it has to be L engineered, and it has to go through building, and it has to meet all building codes, unfortunately.
We're talking 10 by 10, 12 by
Yes.
12, something.
Yeah, like a shed.
Like a shed. We're talking about a.
We're talking about a shed.
For $300,000.
It's gotta be all bid, and I'm hoping, so again, we use engineers, give us estimates of what it is, so that number is, in my eyes,
Require electric, is it gonna require
Yes.
heat and so forth?
Yes.
Because now you got.
yes,
above
which
grade
right now
water.
it does not have electricity there, we don't have any of that there, but it will require electric and it
Below
will
grade, you
heat.
don't have freezing, but if you bring samples above grade, you're gonna need to. All right.
The little, stupid question, the little building where Hall is and 131, is that
That's a sewer pump station,
that's a sewer pump station? I always go, okay,
that's sewer.
okay, I always go by there, I always, what's that? I just,
Yep.
okay, thanks.
It would be something kind of similar to that,
That's what I'm saying, that's a very small, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
maybe not brick, but yes,
okay, got it.
although brick has no maintenance, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, 300,000 for that small size, you probably could do it, yeah.
Finals, final.
I haven't heard that one before, that's good. St. Anne's Tank Sampling Control Building, do I have a motion to accept the article as written?
So moved.
Mr. Waddick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hager. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That is 6-0. All right, so moving on. Article 35, Stormwater MS4 Compliance. This is going to transfer from free cash to pay for all activities associated with and required to state regarding Environmental Protection Agency stormwater. Whatever, could you just, what does MS4 stand for, as it's, it's always an acronym for
Municipal
some,
stormwater,
like fourth generation?
it's 4 S's.
Oh, I see. So instead of saying MSSSS.
Yes, it's,
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh, I get it.
I always put it in my phone and my Google, it'll come up. It's the small municipal separate stormwater system, municipal separate storm sewer systems. I
So-
can't even say all the S's. So it's separate storm sewer systems.
Okay.
It's your sewer system, your drains.
Yeah, your
drains.
stormwater that's on the roads.
It's your stormwater piping, catch basins, treatment,
Where do you
detention
measure that?
basins.
Do you measure that like on every road, or is it, does that system enter in separately into our wastewater?
So we
treatment
don't,
plant?
that doesn't come into our wastewater treatment plant. We don't want it to come into our wastewater treatment plant. One item that we didn't talk about was, that's in our budget now, that used to be a separate item in the sewer, is our I&I program, which is inflow and infiltration, which would be
When it sneaks into our existing
correct.
sewer
So
system.
we don't want it in there. We can talk about how, that's a whole bigger discussion of how we do have some, but we don't have, it's not as bad as a lot of other places.
Okay.
So
$90,000 in
that's why one of the increases in our sewer budget, right? So our MS4 system in our area is not is the whole system, right? But we're permitted by EPA based on population and based on population concentration. So I could show you a map. Part of the town is in the, what we call the MS4 area. And the regulations are federal regulations implemented by EPA. There are multiple points of them. We have to do educational outreach. We have to do, we have to clean the catch basins in this area. We have to, but the problem is the program is expanding. So every year we have to do more and more and more. So where we used to have to know where the catch basins were and know where our outfalls are, now we have to know where the catch basins are, know where the drain goes, know that there's nobody legally connected to the drain, meaning the stormwater sewer line. So we have to inspect that from point to point when there should be no flow, collect samples, try to find if there is a connection, and what they'd call an illicit connection. So somebody mistakenly, we're not going to point, connects their, even something as simple as they connect their discharge from their washing machine into the storm sewer, that's called an illicit connection. We have to remove those, because what EPA is looking for is that we have completely clean water going through our, clean meaning only rainwater, going through our stormwater systems.
As it's going through everything that's on the side of the road or been spilled on the road or?
Well, which is why we have to sweep the roads, which is another part of the program. We have to sweep the roads twice. So there is a, if you attend some of these other, and you look at some of the other bigger towns near Boston, and some other even towns out in Western Mass, just like we have a separate fund for water and sewer, meaning drinking water and wastewater, a lot of, not a lot, but many towns are starting to put in, you can put an enterprise system in for your stormwater to fund that. Here, we have chosen to still continue on with a generaling fund approach, but it can be almost look like another enterprise or another sub-fund is an option as those costs keep on going up. Right now, we have a handle on it, but it's also, so when you do that, you can fund equipment. Like, we bought a sweeper last year because the sweeper was broken, which we need by regulation to use the sweeper. So we're trying to get to the point of being in compliance. We're trying to make sure that we have the manpower to do everything that we're having and that we're prioritizing that in manpower. My sweeper is just starting to go out. We did the schools this week because the schools weren't there, which is part of in our MS4. But that's, it's going to be manpower, logistical, like the easy things, sweeping the roads and cleaning the catch basins are the tip of the iceberg for what is required once we start doing the investigation portion of how we find, how we sample, how we identify, where that, if we find a contamination source. And we do know we have some, because we've already started to do some sampling, but now it's the follow-up, where we start at the outfall, and we go to the next catch basin and the next manhole up the stream, and we see if there's still contamination there, and we keep going until we can pinpoint it, which might mean camera inspections, which can be dye testing, it can be a lot of different things of tools in the toolbox that you have to go and implement. It's also things like upgrade, like we have the sneaky benefit of, so some of the things is we have to show demonstration projects. Honestly, me just talking about this today counts like as an education, because I'm educating you and this is a public meeting, so yay, I can check that box. I went to the finance committee and talked about stormwater. It sounds silly, but like I have to, it's an education project, right? Process and letting people know. So we have to do demonstration projects for nitrogen removal, which means it's enhanced stormwater treatment. But we have to do them on municipal projects, and we have to be able to like put something up and say we did this. Well, And they can be costly, because you're talking about retrofitting something that's just a catch basin that goes and discharges out. Well, how do I do that? And where do I find the property, and what do I do, right? Well, we're kind of in a fortunate situation that the senior center, with their stormwater infiltration, that is a nitrogen, that's one of the nitrogen removals. So we'll be able to take some credit for that project going in, because it's on the town property. Same with 505 Main Street, 501 Main Street, where I'm getting the two because I have another project. I have to look at their permits all the time. The parking lot that's going in, we have enhanced stormwater treatment there. So we're going to have two projects where, and now I have to get a list of 7 more, and we're supposed to be trying to do these. So we have to fund those, because if I had to go out and retrofit an existing discharge location to now have it have some type of infiltration, which is usually what we're talking about, or some type of rain garden, and have it, those upgrades are costly. It has to be designed, it has to be laid out, it has to be constructed. You know, you're talking $100,000-$200,000 on your own project there. So it's partial engineering, it's partial, you know, doing all that sampling and investigation and coordinating all these efforts, plus we have to do a report every year and say, what did you do, you know, and what did you do? Even as much as like, so we track when people pick up trash and they call us and say, hey, I picked up, you know, I did a roadside cleanup, you know, we're doing some Earth Day things, you know, any of those projects, the trails, when they clean up, we count how many bags of trash they pick up, because that's part of it.
Jeez.
Cleaning up the environment and making sure that there's no litter going into your stormwater system is part of it. So we try to, it's not take credit, but it's showing that we're doing something. I don't think people always associate litter with stormwater, but if the litter washes down the road and goes into the storm drain and it goes into the river, we are actually impaired for trash in our rivers here. So we need to keep doing litter patrols and picking up and making sure it's neat. It's part of the whole system.
So this could be anywhere in the town. It doesn't matter that it has to be related to our town water or sewer.
No, and it really doesn't have anything to do with our town water and sewers. Think of it as a
Okay.
totally separate,
I can think of places on Fisk Hill where it's not near the store, anywhere where there's water and sewer, but there are collection basins that are.
Yeah, I do see
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
the MS4 area, it is up, it actually straddles Fisk Hill Road. Anything, if you're on the
Southbridge side?
west side,
Oh, west side, okay.
west side over is considered in our MS4 area, east side over isn't. So McGilpin Road isn't, but it actually, and I look at the map and I go, how did they come up with this map? And then somebody said they do it based on census blocks. So if the census block has a higher, it's a concentration of population, and it's based on census blocks. So, and census blocks are always based on road locations. So they go down the center, or road or stream, or they do, that's how they do census blocks, which I never knew either until a couple of years ago, which is interesting.
If you hadn't gone through that very informative discussion, I would have just gone along with a motion here, but now you unfortunately driven a few questions for me to clarify
right.
here.
It's
So,
education.
in the sewer infiltration study, we say, I think we're in year 5 now of 10. That's a 10-year plan, about $90,000 a year to do all your
That's the
sewer.
I&I projects. Which
This
is-
is stormwater, I know it's a separate
Right.
system. So, are we talking about this is a 10-year program to do whatever, or are we talking about
This is an
this is an
infinite program,
ongoing
never gonna
thing,
go
this is
away.
gonna be here, in addition to what it takes to run the highway department in the regular budget, you're looking,
Yes.
we've been
So
putting
the
$100,000 a year,
EPA
and we'll
permit-
continue to do this
And
separately.
this isn't new. I mean, it might be new for what you guys are hearing about for the last couple of years, because we've always just funded it internally, like in the highway budget.
Okay,
So
so it's, you don't have to
it's
go.
not a new mandate. It's a 5-year permit, federally permitted, and we're coming up to year 5 of the last time they issued it, and they will be reissuing it. Now, if you ever dealt with federal permits, they never come out on time. We will go for another 5 years under this existing permit. They had a 10-year schedule in the 5-year permit, because they knew, and it happened last time, it was 2006, and then they issued one, and it's the process that they go through, because it has a big public comment period. But the requirements are going to change within the next 5 to 10-year window and get even stricter. And the reasoning is, this came out of the Clean Water Act. This came out of cleaning up our rivers and our streams and our oceans and making sure that we didn't have phosphorus, algae blooms and things of that nature polluting our rivers, so that animals and people could enjoy it. So it really came out of cleaning up the rivers. It's part of that Clean Water Act.
So it's not like the permit ends next year in 5 years, or we get another 5 years. It was always in the budget, now it's out in the open, but it's gonna be here in perpetuity as far as we're looking at. So things like, street sweeping and catch basin cleaning, that's covered in, even though it's compliance with this, that's covered in your operating budget. This is the counting the trash bags, doing the studies.
Well,
And
right.
when this thing says all activities, I was reading this as, you're gonna go out there and look for those illicit connections, you're gonna do whatever else.
That's really what this is concentrating
But
on.
there are the education, all these other miscellaneous things, that you're saying you could use that, these funds could go towards that as well. And because it's a warrant article, if you only spend some number less than 100,000 this year, you can carry that
Correct.
forward and get another 100 from next year and keep using that.
So we could bundle it, so when we get to the point where we're caught up on our compliance things that we need to do, like, I don't like to say that we're slightly behind. We kind of got a lag period of, we didn't do enough of that sampling and that investigation work, so we need to catch up. We have till year 10 to get compliant, so we're not completely behind, but we need to make sure that we're doing the process and going forward, because it's quite intensive, and there's frankly limited time. I don't think there's been a week this spring that I could have gone out and collected samples just because it rained too much.
And one last one, illicit connections. I would hope, this is more of a comment than a question, I would hope that we're not using this money for us to go in and take care of the illicit connections. If we can find them and know what the source of that is, we can go back to the source and say.
We haven't even got that far yet,
You guys
yes.
pay for that, removal of that thing.
Right, but if we can't
Then you
get
have
them to
do this.
remove,
Yeah, you
we
don't
may
know who-
have
who
to
put it in there,
actually.
But if it's my washing machine that I've discharged into the
Right.
sewer line, you can go back or cap me off and let it back up into my yard and let me fix it somehow. So, okay.
The reality is, this should be in the operating budget. Free cash is not supposed to be using for, it's supposed to be non-recurring, and it immediately says here, this is a
So
recurring
we're
annual
hoping that we
cost.
can get this to a much more manageable number once we get caught up.
But it shouldn't be taken out of free cash. Not an emergency, and it's a recurring expense, which should be in the operating budget. Or you want to take it out of stabilization funds or whatever, that's fine, but this is not a free cash.
Technically, I would agree with you. It's not, it's more of an operational thing. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're so far behind, we have to put in additional money to catch up, and then once we catch up, we can make it part of our normal budgeting process.
Plus, in the operating budget, as part of our catch-up, then she can always reduce that line item in the operating budget.
That's
Caught up as
always
well.
possible, too.
Then the EPA will probably get stricter and
Yeah, I have to
Ask for more and more.
If you ask for 100,000 though, and you say this is a recurring cost, this is good, does that mean every year you need 100,000?
No, I think
Once you catch up, then it goes away, because, again, back to the planning thing, right?
Right.
But that's it, it's a one-time emergency, call it an emergency if you want,
Right,
fine.
we're
But it's not
still
gonna
in,
be reoccurring, you can't say reoccurring and use free cash.
we're always gonna have costs associated with stormwater. Where they're going to be funded out of in the future, I don't know. For now, we need immediate money. If you wanna put 100,000 back in my budget to do it, okay. But I don't think that, that will balance the budget very well for.
And that would.
Well, that's the whole point.
But if we put it back in the budget for 100,000, then our
It never
raise and
goes away.
appropriate number is out of balance. We only have 12,000 cap in that one, so
Right.
now we gotta go back and look at, we were a little conservative in the revenues, or where do we cut somebody else's budget in order to fund it in the operating piece?
Well, that's again, the whole point, is living within your means. You can't say we don't have it here, so we gotta use it somewhere.
So we're hoping that we can get back within our means and have it more reasonable.
So that would probably be a good topic for the second September or October meeting.
Yeah,
to go
but
through.
also, okay, but if
we
you
ever do
didn't have
offset
reoccurring
meetings.
here, if we said like a one-time, I don't know if we can change that or not, if we could just put
You did it last year,
non-reoccurring,
so
then,
I don't know how you say one time.
or non-reoccurring.
Non-recurring.
Well,
And I don't wanna change, for the sake
well,
of,
we control the summary boxes. It's our language. So we can put in whatever the explanation we want to put in is.
if we can put this as a non-reoccurring,
But we don't know how long, you expect this to be a one and done?
No, well, I don't
It's
know.
probably a several-year recurrence, but hopefully not in perpetuity, to use Mike's word. It's not
But
gonna go
just because
forever.
it comes out of free cash this time around, doesn't mean it'll come out of
Free
free
cash
cash next
next.
year. It could be budgeted somewhere.
should be budgeted.
Well,
If I could
I do.
interject, just,
Sure.
yeah, just for some perspective on this, and not that how every other town does it is right or wrong, but we're not unique in the fact that we do it this way right now. It effectively is an unfunded mandate. It was going to disproportionately and negatively impact most people's operating budgets to the point of having to cut services. Heather brought up the fact that some towns want to do it as a separate enterprise fund, almost with its own taxation. We certainly haven't wanted to go that direction at this point, and while we can still manage with free cash until we can get to where it's a manageable number in a budget without cutting services, that's probably pretty much where we're at. It is a problem throughout the Commonwealth.
this is a circumstance where we're fortunate to have the free cash, so we don't have to do the things you just described.
Exactly. That's exactly why free cash is there. I mean, again, not for typically recurring things, but when an unfunded mandate comes down that's going to take several years to deal with, if you have free cash, it makes it a lot
Yeah.
nicer than having to cut
You
services.
don't have to start laying people off and cutting budgets and so forth.
As long as from a cultural perspective, we don't lean on, again, the spirit of it is, don't put it in your operating budget because, for obvious reasons, if you start to tap into other things for your operating budget, then you're operating
track,
efficiently, or does that become a crutch? Every time I want to do something, it's, free
No, I-
cash,
Well-
rather than planning, rather than doing the right things, because that's what we
I
are.
think we all, yeah.
No, okay, get it, okay, enough said. I'm just,
I think we're good there, so.
okay.
I'll make a motion, we recommend to town meeting, Article 35, Stormwater MS4 compliance as presented.
Second.
All right. Jim Waddick, Mike Hager, any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? 5 to 1 to 0. Consistency, that's good. All right, 5 to 1 to 0. All right, so going back to Article 33.
That was supposed to be the quick article, right?
Those two, yeah.
Got too technical, I think.
Article 33, Stallion Hill Water Tank Replacement. We were asked to hold off on this until the Board of Selectmen got a chance to discuss it, which they did at their last meeting. Do you want to highlight for us what the Board of Selectmen decided to do? Yeah, I'm sorry,
Well,
Robin, yeah.
The board did vote 3-1 to split the cost of that borrowing, and just for the point of explanation, if the whole borrowing came, the rate, it would go on the water rate. Barbara provided some numbers. It would be about a 20% increase on the water rate, I believe, in the year that we would borrow, which would be not this coming year, but 26.
It was
And
$1.58.
So it would be about a 20% increase. If it were to be 50-50 because people believe that the fire suppression portion of this and the fact that the tank could be probably half the size if we didn't have to worry about that, there's a belief that 50% reasonably could be funded from the general fund. And when I say funded from the general fund, it does not mean an increase in tax or an increase in out-of-pocket cost to the general fund or to the rate to the citizens, the taxpayers. What it basically means, going back to the point of having to find that money in our budget, which in 2026, I believe Barbara said would be about 150,000, then we will have to find within the operating budget with the split. So with that, it would be 10% on the ratepayers approximately, and about 150,000 off of the operating budget. The board voted 3-1 with that option, believing that there was some, sort of town-wide interest in this particular water tank as opposed to just ratepayers. And I want to express, it's not a double hit out of pocket. It's not like the ratepayer pays 50% out of pocket and then their taxes are going to go up or we're going to have an override to pay for it, nothing like that. We will have to absorb that in the budget just as we would absorb any debt for any other borrowing.
And it would be, my understanding too, it's a 20-year borrowing timeframe is what we were looking at? The $155,000 number that was thrown out, is that principal and interest or just principal?
Principal and interest.
I'm sorry, Barbara, you didn't come out that time.
Oh, sorry, both.
It's principal and interest, okay.
A question, if you look at, I'm going to be like Mr. Free Cash, I guess, but if you look at what we said from last meeting, we have, after these other outlays, we have 4.628 in free cash, 4 million, right? If we look at what's prudent,
Price per gallon from.
okay, and once you look at, we do policies here and there, but today, at 4%, you're looking at, for which is supposed to be used for emergencies, right? You're looking at 1.68, free cash. That means we could actually take 3 million out of this 4.6 and pay for this if we deem this to be an emergency. Well, that's just the math.
But that free cash is taken from everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah, that's right.
And you have to remember, this is
I
not,
always forget about that.
there's only 40% of the town that has water.
No, I forgot about that prorated thing we have to figure out, okay. Never mind.
And I'll just step back to a previous conversation we talked about what the cost per gallon of
You're
water
right,
is.
Kevin.
I said it was 1.1 cents per gallon. This would raise it to 1.35 cents per gallon. It doesn't sound like an astonishing amount for a gallon of water, so I'm just trying to put some perspective on that. You want to pay, that's not 13 cents, that's 1.4 cents per gallon, as opposed to 1.1 cents per gallon of water if it goes to the ratepayer. If the price goes to goes up 20% from 8.45, increased by 20%, and you divide that number by 749 gallons, because that's what's in a 100 cubic feet is 749 gallons, comes out to a net price of 1.35 cents per gallon of water.
Gotcha. So, and if I'm only drinking 10 gallons of water in my house, it costs me a dime. But I don't know, man, I'm trying to
So an
understand.
average, so I do have, and these are round numbers, it's not, it
Yep.
depends on how many people you have in your house and everything, but an average water bill is about 2,000 cubic feet.
Okay,
quarter.
2,000 cubic feet,
A quarter? Okay, that's good to know.
So,
quarter.
And you
So
did
that's 20
yourself.
times 749. So just under 15,000 gallons a quarter.
15,000 gallons?
That's under $200 a quarter. There's 749 gallons in 100 cubic feet.
So you're talking average bill is $200 a quarter, and if it goes up, what we say here, 10%, it's gonna go up another 20.
No, that's at the current price. It's 200, no, that's at the new price.
If they absorbed it all.
So the increase is about,
Hang on, I'll run it again, I'll run the number again.
I'm
So
sorry.
the
So our
number,
minimum bill is 1,000, and right now it's about 100 and, it's 78, so it would be about double. That's probably about 200.
8.45 times 1.2.
Do you have any
So the
idea
new
what
price
other
would be
towns pay for water?
1014.
I know you probably,
I don't off the
say
top of my
2,000
head, but there is a very
2,000
comprehensive
cubic feet
study
per
that I
quarter.
probably can get my hands on. We are probably looking at, we're at some of the higher rates right now,
okay.
and we are looking at being higher.
And
I was hoping you'd say lower.
And to be clear, this wouldn't be based, just to be clear, this wouldn't be based on the 25 rate, this would be a 26. So whatever, you have to consider it in conjunction with whatever rate you would have in '26.
It would be added on it, correct?
So we have two
Right,
borrowings
but not
right
up
now for water.
to 25 plus whatever increase might happen in '26
You say
as well, you know,
25,
generally, plus the
2,000.
this on top of that,
2,000.
because this borrowing wouldn't probably hit until then, I don't believe. Barbara would correct me if I'm wrong on that.
So Kevin, I don't think the issue for the board is do we believe or disbelieve that we need to replace the tank?
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's
Replace the
in
tank.
discussion at all.
I think we agree we have to borrow $3 million versus pull it out of some other fund in order to pay for it. So the question becomes, I guess, for the motion, is it, if you're gonna put the funding piece in the back end, consistent with the articles where it goes all to, we recommend it goes all to ratepayers, or a split 50-50 like the Board of Selectmen? I guess we should see where a motion goes and where
Okay.
people come out.
I have my prepared statement I'd like to read, and then I would go with the entire 100% be borne by rate and the water rate. So we would add that statement that came from the other borrowing articles to the end of this one.
Before you read your statement, did you have the opportunity to incorporate the information I passed on to you?
No.
So can I?
I mentioned it, but I don't get your detail, but go ahead.
Let me mention it first, because I check this out, I do my homework. And based on the average bill for property insurance in this town, and based on standard practice in the homeowners insurance industry, and I checked it at the highest level, someone who insures a home in this town would probably average, depending on the value of the home, probably somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a year for the homeowners insurance. And they would get at the very minimum 15 to 20% discount from the insurance company if they're on a water line that has hydrants available to fight fire. That's a standard practice in the homeowners insurance industry, that if you have fire suppression available to you, you get a 15 to 20% at a minimum discount on your homeowners insurance. So if you want to do the math, if you pay $2,000 a year, that's anywhere from $300 to $400 a year you save on your homeowners insurance because you have a hydrant on your street. I don't have a hydrant on my street, so I'm paying the full bill. But that's regardless, I'm just making a comment, and I can say with a 100% degree of confidence, based on the source of my information, that's accurate. Okay, so, for what it's worth, I haven't heard it discussed anywhere else on any meetings on the impact on each homeowner's insurance if they have a hydrant versus have to worry about throwing a line in the lake and filling the pumper and putting the fire out, because those people pay more.
Well, I mean, that's actually on a standard questionnaire of how.
Yeah, they ask you if you have.
They ask
Yes,
you,
of course.
how far are you from a hydrant?
Right. Which is why
So
where I live, we
obviously,
installed a 25,000
that's a
gallon
consideration.
tank, because it's private property. We have a
Right.
25,000 gallon tank connected to private hydrants to take care of our own fire control, because we're not on town water. And it affects our interest, it affects our property insurance by 15 to 20%. Anyway, for what it's worth.
So what do you?
This would be in
so what's
support
your-
of the
So what is your point then?
you want me to make
The point is that I don't have town water, and I'm paying more for my property insurance because I don't.
So you're against the 50-50?
Well, I'm adding that to the pile that he's about to
Okay,
unload on the
makes
rest.
All right, so,
So Jim, did you want to make a motion? I would think Kevin's statement may be better in support of some motion versus whatever.
yeah.
My motion is going to be that, to the effect that this is funded out of the user fee for the.
We would change the last sentence of the borrowing language that's contained in the select board part to be, while pursuant to general obligation is expected, any such debt will be paid from user rates. And it's just stop with charges? Yeah, user rates and charges, that's where it stops. And leave out, along with the general fund operating with 50% from each. So that would be the motion.
And when you think about, I'll just add this, when you think about where the water lines are and where the hydrants are, and think of who some of the major users are, we talked about, I've heard the conversations about, the restaurants, well, they're cooking and they get a reduced insurance rate because they have a hydrant on the street. If you go to the Walmart Plaza, do you think all the businesses there are better off because they have fire suppression available through hydrants? If you go on Route 20, you go past Arlen Tool and Southbridge Sheet Metal and the other one that's out there further out, you don't think those industries are getting a better insurance rate because they have fire suppression on their property? I can guarantee you they are, because I've been through that process.
So was yours a motion, or do you
Yes,
want
I'm
someone
going
to
to
read
make
the
that
whole
motion.
thing?
So, yeah, I'll read it. The town appropriates $3,300,000 to pay the cost of replacing the Stallion Hill water tank, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8, subsection 4, I guess, for any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore. While any bonds and notes issued pursuant to this vote will constitute general obligation debt of the town, it is expected that any such debt will be paid from user rates and charges.
Period.
Period. So that's my motion. I need a second.
Second.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to put motion, KS, and M.
MC.
Well, no, it's MCP, I guess.
MCP.
Okay. First time I used your initials, so I had to think I was going to
Introduce
put that.
yourself as MC, whatever, I use MCP over here, it's very, very easy, so.
All right. So, thank you for your indulgence here. So I want to comment on the Article 33 Stallion Hill water tank replacement, because it seems the Water and Sewer Commissioners are trying to change long-standing policy by passing on costs for the Water and Sewer Department to taxpayers that don't even have access to those services. I understand why they're doing it. They've been told both by our committee and the DPW for years that they're undercharging ratepayers. So not enough money has been set aside for maintenance. Now the chickens have come home to roost. A lot of maintenance needs to be done, and they don't want to have to tell ratepayers that their costs are going to need to go up. So they're using the rationale that even those taxpayers with no access to town drinking water need to pay for a water tank because the water in that particular tank, the Stallion Hill tank, is used for fire suppression. There are multiple holes in this argument. First of all, we have never charged anyone, never mind a taxpayer with no access to town water, for water used to put out a fire. The fire chief came to our last meeting and explained that when we put out a fire, we don't bill insurance companies for the water used, we don't bill the property owner, we don't even bill other towns when we send our trucks to help them put out a fire there. But now, we are hearing that taxpayers who can't even access town water need to pay for a water tank because they may someday use the water in that tank if their property catches fire, effectively charging those taxpayers for water to fight a fire, something we've never done before. This opens up a can of worms. How do we explain to someone in Walker Pond or near any of our lakes with no access to a fire hydrant that they have to pay for this water tank when in all likelihood water from Walker Pond or the lake would be used to put out the fire? More importantly, how do we explain that they have to pay for this tank in case they use the water from it for a fire, but someone in another town doesn't have to pay for the water we use to put out their fire if we provide mutual aid? We're talking about charging our own taxpayers when we don't even charge other towns. Another hole in the argument involves the tank itself and how it drains. The DPW director explained at our last meeting that all three of our tanks work together via a pressure system, so that when you drop from one, the water level in all of them goes down. So to say this one tank, the Stallion Hill tank, is used for fire suppression is stretching the truth. My worry is, since they are all interconnected, if we agree to have non-users pay for the Stallion Hill tank, we'll hear the same rationale in the future, suggesting all taxpayers bear some of the cost for other water tanks, since we already paid for one and they're all interconnected. No one can guarantee that once we change a long-standing policy, it won't become a habit, and all taxpayers will end up footing the bill for costs water users should have been paying all along to save up for these maintenance needs. I also heard during the select board meeting that we should think of this like the school system. Even if we don't use the school system, we all have to pay for it. Well, there's another argument that isn't well thought out. Our school system, police department, fire department, and so on are services the town makes available to all taxpayers. If taxpayers use the services or not, the services are available to them and therefore need to pay for them. It would seem obvious that towns should only charge taxpayers for the services provided. For those in areas with no town water, it's not as if they have the option to use town water and they are declining it. They simply are not being provided those services and should not be charged in any way for something that is not being provided to them. I heard the select board mention that they feel bad for water and sewer users if their rates have to go up. Well, how about those that don't even get the privilege of those services? Those who don't have access to town water and sewer are at a significant disadvantage. Those taxpayers have to dig their own well, buy their own well pumps, buy their own well tanks, and disinfect and filter their own water to ensure they have clean drinking water. The cost to drill a well is in the thousands. Well pumps are approximately $2,000. Tanks are $2,000 each. And there's a constant cost of chemicals and salts needed to maintain clean water, never mind the time and effort. Those who don't have access to town water don't have the luxury of just being able to turn on a faucet to get clean water. They have the burden of being their own water department. The same is true for the septic system. A new septic system costs $25,000 to $50,000 to install, and there's no way of getting the rest of the town to split all those costs with you. Not only is it costly and a lot of work when you don't have access to town water and sewer and have to provide your own, but there are other hidden costs that those on town water and sewer don't have to worry about. When you sell your home and you're on town water and sewer, you don't have to worry about passing Title V or taking less money to compete with a similar home that doesn't have the aggravation of a well or a septic tank, septic system. Buyers don't want to deal with being their own water and sewer department, so it's not a selling point and can devalue property. Many also pay higher homeowners insurance because even if the town has a good ISO rating, which is the rating of your fire department, insurance companies rate each property as well and will penalize you if you're more than 1,000 feet from a hydrant or more than 5 miles from the station. Because of all the costs and aggravation associated with having your own well and septic, we've never charged those with no access to town water and sewer for anything related to town water and sewer. I don't think it's fair to those taxpayers to go down this road and set a new precedent. Water and sewer users need to pay the proper rates and to not only operate the system, but to maintain it, and they haven't been. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the water and sewer commissioners for not planning for maintenance. Attempting to get all the taxpayers to make up for that mistake is not the answer. That's my statement.
How do you really feel about that?
I had a lot more, and I had to cut it down.
You didn't take your shoe off, take your shoe off and pound on the table, that's good.
No. I mean, I actually think in the issues for consideration section of the book that we should put in, for the next time there's either a charter review commission or a charter review committee, that the water sewer commissioners should be an independent board appointed by the Board of Health and not be coinciding with the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen is a political animal, and they have to answer to a lot of unhappy people when they do this. But that's a future argument for later on. So,
And Heather, you can share it.
No.
Oh, so you'd have to report to it.
Yes, I'd have to report to it, but not chair it, no.
all right. I don't know if anyone
Discussion,
else,
you ready to go to a vote?
yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts they want to express, otherwise I
think
can
you said
call
it
a vote.
all. I think you said it all.
I think it got the essence of it, yeah.
Okay, so our stance is that the cost should be borne by the water users.
That's the way the motion reads. We'll see how
Yes.
the vote comes
Oh,
out.
he made the motion, but we haven't voted.
Yeah, so all those in favor of our motion, of that
Who
motion?
seconded it? Mike, did you second?
I think
No,
it's-
MCP did.
Oh, that's right, I forgot, okay.
My first second, yeah.
So all those in favor? So that's 6-0. Wow. Great.
Anyone here on sewer tomorrow?
Are we done with Heather? Sent her home early last week. I apologize for you having to come back if that was
No,
the
I
case.
appreciate you coming back too again, because I mean, at least you get to check your box that you educated us, because we always
That's true, I
learn
did.
something new. So,
I'm gonna have to write it in my memos of what I
If we ask the
talked about
same
stormwater.
questions next year, you can reprimand us for
That's okay.
our memories.
Thank you. You are a font of information. For
Yeah.
somebody new, you know a lot
You're
about what's
definitely
going
planning
on.
it. You're heading in
with
the right
water and
direction. We'll
sewer.
see you next week.
thank you again, Heather. Okay,
Debbie in Southbridge before she came in.
Really? Okay.
all right, so we're not done yet, so, but Mike, you're not leaving, right? You're just taking a break, yep. Okay,
Is it cigarette time?
great.
Maybe back.
Doesn't smoke.
All right. So, the next thing to deal with is special town meeting warrant articles. And I mean, I couldn't do all four because I'm waiting for an updated special town meeting warrant. Because there are,
So we're not gonna do the rest of the ones on the, are we?
no, we're gonna be dealing with, the town pointer's coming next week.
Okay.
Recreation's coming next week, trails is coming next
Great,
week.
okay.
And actually, education is coming next week. So, you know, we'll deal with those articles we haven't dealt with at that point in time. So, the two special town meeting articles we can deal with, because
Those are the ones you sent us before.
they have is the transfer of funds from free cash for streetlights, which is Article 58. And this is, looking as it's an LED conversion for the streetlights.
Who's responsible for, is it the town or is it National Grid to install streetlights?
National Grid installs them.
Okay.
We work with them on the installation and the conversion as to what we want for the conversion, what type of lights we want. There's just been a delay on this on their end. They were supposed to have it done. That's why we budgeted, the cost will drop dramatically. Once it happens, it was supposed to happen in this fiscal year. It did not, but they are working on it. They're inventorying, they're getting what they need to do it, and that's
Okay.
kind of where we're at. But they install. We ask them, you know, we have them replace
We're on Article
if there are lights
51
that are out,
town meeting.
but it's their job. They do the work.
Okay, thank you.
And, I'm sorry, I forgot to note this. We're using the 2024 STM warrant, version 1, 2024-0204. So just a file we're using.
No idea what
until it
that
gets-
That was the one that was sent out.
That was sent out weeks ago. It hasn't been updated.
Yes.
I guess I would just add to that, your question was who installs them? National Grid installs them. Who pays for them? It's the town. And whether we own them and pay for them as though we own them, or we pay a rate because National Grid owns them with lease and back.
They
There's two
install,
different
but we
payment
pay
ways.
for the
We pay
service.
for that, yeah.
For the lights.
Yep.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So who services them then? The town, or do we go to National Grid and say, hey, we're
Grid.
having?
I think the grid does.
Grid.
Okay.
Grid. We do not touch the lights. We have no cherry picker to even get up there. Our DPW does not touch those lights.
But we'll pay for the LEDs for them to do it, or they'll also pay for.
Well, we're getting there's a conversion incentive right now, and we actually will, in the long run, save significant money with the conversion to LED.
Oh, it's no question, okay. But when one burns out, after this first go-around, one burns out, then National Grid comes in with their cherry picker and puts one in, and then life's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do the work.
After 90,000 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say, by the time these burn
Exactly.
out, none of us will be sitting here talking with the LEDs.
Yeah, exactly right,
So it's a
yeah.
10-year replacement.
Shed some light
program,
on
is what
that.
you're saying.
They last almost 100,000 hours.
We get more light for significantly less lumens.
Yeah. All right, then, so do I have a motion to approve Article 58 of the special town meeting warrant as written?
So moved.
Second.
Mike seconds, in case no one heard. Mr. Waddick. All right, any other questions or comments related to the streetlights? All those in favor? And that's 6-0. Great. I'm sorry. And then Article 59, betterment payoff, dissolving of betterments. You know, we're transferring 7,000 from sewer fund balance to take care of the betterments. Do I have a motion to approve Article 59 as written?
So moved.
Jim, in
Oh,
10
you
seconds.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Get on the board.
All right, any question or comments related to this? I'm a little slow in writing this down. So it was Jim and Ken. I didn't see any questions, right?
No, It's just recording fees, so it's,
Okay, all those in favor? That's 6-0. All right, so let me just put that in there. Great, we're making progress there. So that gets us through those. We do have a set of meeting minutes. If you guys have got a chance to look at them, we could take them, even though they're not explicitly here, meeting minutes is on our warrant. And I'm thinking,
just to mention, you sent us a new one, and the new estimates are out. And that new DLS document you sent us.
Oh, okay.
New Chevy sheet estimates are out.
Oh, excellent.
So if people want to take a look,
Yeah, no, everyone should have a copy, but that's great.
they do.
All right, so where was I going? I was going to your minutes, Mike. Where did I put them? There they are.
So they did come out today, so I guess the question for the committee is, did you see them, have you had a chance to look at them, or do you want to hold off for another week?
I read them in detail. I printed them and read them and went through
The
them.
list
And I
is on,
matched
so
the
what-
numbers to the budget book, and you had all the numbers 100% correct.
I did
All the
not
way
have
through.
to change one number that Alyssa put in the.
Okay, they were right on the money. So I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay.
That's of April
April 4th.
4.
And we're supposed to be able to get them done as soon as possible at our next meeting. I mean, that's came out of that open meeting law statement. No, that's great.
Requirement for years, but yes.
Yeah, but, you know, we're now holding more tightly to that. All right, you said approval as written, and who seconded?
Me.
Mike. Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments on the meetings of April 4th? Now, is this predate MC?
Yes,
It does. Okay. So all those in favor? Opposed and abstaining? It's 5-0 to 1.
I was just looking on my calendar to see if I was there.
They weren't at the first
Okay,
meeting.
so that's our meeting minutes. I mean, we can move into new business.
Have any?
No. Old business, we don't have any. Public access?
What does that mean?
If the member of the public was here, they'd come up and be able to address.
Oh, okay.
Sort of like you did the first time you came to our meeting.
And you let me speak first.
Yeah, we
thank you.
moved public access up front because you were such an unusual occurrence.
We never had visitors.
That's the nicest thing somebody said to me today.
Sorry.
You didn't want
I mean, we
live
appreciate it
witnesses.
too, you know?
Didn't want you to have to wait to the end.
All right, then, seeing it's 9:02, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I move.
And then Kathy seconds.
Perfect.
All right,
Jump all over that.
9:02, all those in favor?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think